And now it's time for another Dice Tower review with Mike Vincent.
Hello everyone, thank you for watching. Today we're going to be taking a look at the third adventure pack in the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, and this adventure pack is called The Journey to Rhosgobel. So we have a new leadership hero to take a look at, and of course the regular amount of player cards. So let's jump in and take a look. Alright, so our new hero for this adventure pack is Prince Imrahil. He has the Gondor and Noble keywords. He has 11 starting threat, 2 willpower, 3 attack, 2 defense, and 4 hit points. So very well-rounded stats, and his ability reads, after a character leaves play, ready Prince Imrahil. Limit once per round. So we have a very decent hero with Prince Imrahil, with a sort of unique ability. His stats are certainly good, he's well-rounded, and he could be used to quest, attack, or defend. Really, he doesn't have any weaknesses in terms of his statistics, other than the fact that his threat is maybe a little high at 11. So you're going to want to use cards strategically that will allow you to make the most of Prince Imrahil. He has an ability built around other characters leaving play. So there's cards like Sneak Attack, which allow characters to come in and they will leave play, which would work. Characters like Gandalf, who will come in, they will be used for a round and then go away, so that will work as well. I've found that the Rohan keyword and a lot of the spirit allies with the Rohan trait tend to have that ability where they can be discarded, or they have an ability which has them leave play. So you may want to consider, if you do play Prince Imrahil, to use him with a Spirit Rohan deck, or perhaps if you're playing with a friend, to have them use a deck built around those Rohan allies that will be leaving play. It does not say that the character has to be under your control. So if you're playing with a partner, of course, their abilities can work with you. So it might be worth teaming up with your partner ahead of time to see if you can maximize the amount of cards that will have characters leaving play. If you have a lot of cheap chump blockers in your deck and you know you're going to be in a combat heavy scenario, then he might be worth using as well. Because if you know you're going to be losing allies, well, of course they will be leaving play, and that will allow you to ready Prince Imrahil. So he has this sort of interesting mechanic where arguably, as things are going badly, he will sort of rise to the occasion to help you out. So if you're losing allies, that will allow him to ready, and he can be there for attacking or defending. So you're probably going to want to use him to quest in many cases, but then if you lose an ally, let's say due to a treachery card that does direct damage, well then he's going to be ready to attack or defend, and you can be making the most of a deck or your partner's deck where characters is leaving play so he can come back in. So he's not going to work in every deck, and you're probably going to want to maximize the amount of cards that will focus around having characters leave play. But I think in the right deck, Prince Imrahil can be a very effective hero. He's not amongst the best or the worst. I would place him somewhere in the middle. So a very solid hero in Prince Imrahil. All right, so our neutral ally we have for this card is Radagast. Radagast, of course, is an Astari. He has a very high cost of 5. He has 2 willpower, 1 attack, 1 defense, and 3 hit points. His ability reads, Radagast collects 1 resource each resource phase. These resources can be used to pay for creature cards played from your hand. Action, spend X resources from Radagast's pool to heal X wounds on any one creature. I love the art in this card, and it's kind of funny if you've seen the Hobbit movies, how different Peter Jackson's depiction of Radagast is compared to what we see on the card. This is more what I had expected from Radagast before I saw the movies, but both are fun interpretations. So of course, we've noticed over the last couple packs of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, an emerging keyword in the Eagles. So if you are playing an Eagles deck, if you plan to get all 6 packs in this adventure cycle, then Radagast is going to be almost essential and a very nice card to include in an Eagle deck. Unlike other Astari like Gandalf that will usually come in for a round and then leave, Radagast is nice in that he's going to stick around. So you can use him to quest, of course, with 2 willpower, and he's going to be able to take a little bit of damage with 1 defense and 3 hit points. Now, of course, collecting resources every phase is excellent, as a lot of the tactics cards don't always lend themselves too well to resource generation. Of course, we have cards like Horn of Gondor, but most of the cards for the Eagles are tactics. So it's nice that Radagast will be building up some extra resources for you, and these have to be spent on Eagles. But of course, if you've built an Eagle deck, then you're going to have lots of opportunity to spend those resources. Now his action reads spend X resources from his pool to heal X wounds on any one creature. So as you start to build your allies of Eagles, if you're able to block and defend with them and they start taking damage, you can also use Radagast as a healer as well. So I really think Radagast is an excellent card. He is expensive with a cost of 5, but I think he is essential if you're going to be running an Eagles deck. Otherwise, if you're not running an Eagles deck, I would be quite hesitant to include Radagast just because of how expensive he is, and his stats, they're not great, but they're certainly serviceable if you're running an Eagles deck. So there we have Radagast. All right, so yet another Eagle card, a very powerful ally named Landreval. So Landreval, he is expensive with a cost of 5, no doubt, and he has 1 willpower, 3 attack, 1 defense, and 4 hit points. He, of course, is a creature and an eagle. He is also a sentinel. Landreval cannot have restricted attachments. Response: after a hero card is destroyed, return Landreval to his owner's hand to put that hero back into play with 1 damage token on it. Limit once per game. So we have a very powerful ally in Landreval, particularly if you're playing an Eagle deck. So if you have Radagast on the table, he will certainly make it much easier to afford to pay for Landreval, as his cost is a bit prohibitive at 5. But of course, if you have Radagast generating resources, you'll be able to spend a lot of those as Landreval is a creature. Great for attacking with an attack of 3. Very solid defense with 4 hit points and 1 defense, and he is a sentinel as well, so you can use him to block, and of course if he does take damage, you can use Radagast to heal him. Very powerful as well is his ability to resurrect heroes. This is not something that we see very often in Lord of the Rings Living Card Game, as there are only a handful of cards, mostly in the Spirit Sphere, which will allow you to resurrect a hero. So let's actually take a look at that card. So in the Spirit Sphere, we have Fortune or Fate, also has a cost of 5 and reads action, choose a hero in any player's discard pile, put that card into play under its owner's control. So very nice effect for Landreval, as we have another card that can resurrect a hero. Now, of course, you do have to put 1 damage on him, but much better on the table, being useful with 1 damage than dead, of course, in the discard pile. So for a cost of 5, you essentially have extra attacking points, you have someone who can defend, who has hit points, and who can be healed, and be a sentinel. So that almost makes him quite a bit better than Fortune or Fate, which is a one-time use event, which will resurrect a hero, and that's it. Whereas Landreval, you have to return him to your owner's hand, which again could work potentially with Prince Imrahil, as he'll be leaving play, and will allow you to bring a hero back into play as well. So I think Landreval is an excellent card if you're playing an Eagles deck, or even just want a powerful tactics ally to bring along. I think Landreval is an excellent choice, and if you're playing an Eagles deck, it's a no-brainer to bring him along. So a very nice ally there with Landreval. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at an event called To the Eyrie. Has a cost of 2 and reads response: after an ally is destroyed, exhaust 1 Eagle character to move that ally from the discard pile to its owner's hand. So we have an interesting case here where I think this card perhaps looks better on paper than actually ends up playing out in an actual game. There's a few things that make this card a tiny bit prohibitive. Firstly, you need to exhaust an Eagle character to do this. So really the only context where this card is going to be effective is if you are playing an Eagle deck. Now certainly if you're playing an Eagle deck, there could be a scenario where you lose an important ally that you'd like to get back, but again it's going to cost 2 resources. Tactics isn't necessarily known for having an abundance of resources. There's, of course, like the Horn of Gondor, which will allow you to do that. But I find oftentimes I've already spent my resources on attachments or new allies, and there are a lot of other interesting cards that I tend to use my resources on. So to have 2 back ready to go and an Eagle that I need to exhaust to make this happen does make the usefulness of this card a bit questionable. It's one I've included in my decks before, and I've found there's very few times where I actually end up using this. And if I'm playing with my wife, who perhaps is running Éowyn, well, this might be a card that I end up discarding to get some more willpower. Not to say that it's not useful. I mean, you only have to exhaust 1 Eagle, which is nice. But the cost of 2 is a bit limiting, I think. So to the Eerie, not necessarily a bad card, because I do think by looking at the text that it's something that can be useful, but I've just found for me in practice, this is not a card that's worked out so well in the past. So I would say perhaps if you're playing an Eagles deck, try and include this and see if you want to use it. Could be a way to get back someone like Rhosgobel or Radagast, but again, you're going to have to put them back in your hand and then pay their very high cost of 5 again. So if you have a very abundant amount of resources happening for you, then perhaps this is going to come in handy, but I don't know that there is any single ally character that would be worth going through the trouble of playing this card, exhausting an Eagle, paying a cost of 2 for that to happen. But for the big hitters like Rhosgobel and Radagast, I can see where this card might come in handy. So there we have to the Eerie. So now turning our attention to the spirit cards, here we have Ancient Matham with a cost of 1. It's an attachment and reads attached to a location. Response: after attached location is explored, the first player draws 3 cards. I think this card is excellent. It's very cheap with a cost of 1, and it's just so nice because regardless of what quest you're playing, you're going to be traveling through locations. It's an essential part of this game. Every quest has it, and therefore you're always going to have an opportunity to play Ancient Matham. Now, you do lose a little bit of control, as when you explore that location, whoever is the first player will get the 3 cards, but this can be both an advantage and a disadvantage. Of course, if you're the one who played this card and you really need the card draw, and you happen to go through the location when your partner is the first player, well, of course, they will then get those cards. But that's also an advantage in that if your partner's deck doesn't have a whole lot of card draw, this allows you to give your partner the ability to draw some extra cards as well. So including a couple copies of this in your deck, I think is a very cheap and easy way to go ahead and generate 3 cards. A cost of 1 is very reasonable, and as I said before, you're always going to be going to locations and exploring them. So there's always going to be an opportunity to play this card. So I think it's an excellent choice. Typically, we think of the lore sphere as the one primarily known for card draw. So I think having this in the spirit sphere is very nice, especially as you could also use this with a partner, whether they're playing tactics or leadership. As long as they are the first player when you're exploring the location, they will reap the 3 cards. So a very nice card here, I think, in Ancient Matham.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.